Quiet. Enjoy your last peaceful days. The marshmallow caught fire again. Third one in 10 minutes. I watched Sam blow it out with the kind of dramatic flair she usually reserved for her. Instagram stories, complete with the pouty lips and perfectly tousled hair that somehow looked effortless despite the 20 minutes she'd spent getting ready for a camping trip. "Eli, you're supposed to help me with these," she said, shooting me that look. The one that used to make my heart skip, but now just reminded me of a customer service representative dealing with a particularly slow client, right? Because marshmallow roasting is definitely a two-person job, I said, taking another swig of my beer. The cores tasted like piss, but it was cold piss, which made it bearable in the mountain heat. Around our campfire, the usual suspects had gathered for what? Sam insisted on calling our annual couples retreat. Brandon Pike sat across from me, his designer camping gear looking like it had never seen actual dirt. Nena, Sam's best friend since college, was already 3 drinks deep and getting that glassy look that meant trouble was coming. Her boyfriend Derek was passed out in a camp chair, mouth hanging open like a dead fish. Leah, the quiet one who always seemed to be taking mental notes, sat next to her husband, Mark, both of them watching the fire like it might reveal the secrets of the universe. "Truth or dare?" Nena announced suddenly because apparently we were all 16 again. I groaned. "Seriously? What's next? Spin the bottle." "Don't be such a buzzkill, Eli," Sam said. But she was smiling at Nena, not me. "It'll be fun." Famous last words. In my experience, nothing good ever started with "it'll be fun." That's what Sam had said about this whole camping trip, about inviting Brandon, about a lot of things that had turned out to be spectacularly unfun. The game started innocently enough. Derek woke up long enough to admit he cheated on his college entrance exams. Mark confessed to stealing his brother's girlfriend in high school. Nina dared Leah to skinny dip in the lake, which she declined with a nervous laugh. Then Nina turned to Sam with that predatory grin she got when she smelled drama. "Truth or dare, Sammy?" "Truth," Sam said, which surprised me. She usually went for the dares. "If you could sleep with any man here besides your husband, obviously who would it be?" The silence stretched out like a rubber band about to snap. I felt my jaw tighten as I waited for Sam to laugh it off, to say something about how inappropriate the question was, to defend our marriage the way wives are supposed to do. Instead, she looked directly at Brandon and said, "Him." The beer turned to acid in my stomach. Brandon's face went red, but he was grinning like he just won the lottery. The others laughed nervously. The kind of forced laughter that happens when everyone knows a line has been crossed, but nobody wants to acknowledge it. "Wow," I said, my voice coming out flatter than I'd intended. "Good to know." "Oh, come on, Eli," Sam said, reaching over to touch my arm. "It's just a game. Don't be so sensitive." Sensitive, right? Because wanting your wife to show some basic respect for your marriage makes you sensitive. I stood up, my chair scraping against the rocky ground. "I'm going to take a piss." "Eli?" Sam started. But I was already walking away from the fire into the darkness between the trees. I didn't go far, just far enough to be out of the light where I could lean against a pine tree and try to process what had just happened. Through the trees, I could hear their voices continuing the game, Sam's laugh ringing out clear and bright like nothing had happened. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it really was just a game, just Nena stirring up trouble because that's what Nena did. Maybe. The sound of footsteps on pine needles made me turn. Sam was walking toward me. But she wasn't alone. Brandon was right behind her, his hand on her lower back in a way that was definitely not friendly. "Eli!" Sam called out. "Where are you?" I pressed myself against the tree trunk, feeling like a complete idiot for hiding, but unable to make myself move. They stopped about 10 FT away from me, close enough that I could smell Sam's perfume mixing with Brandon's cologne. "He's probably sulking by the lake," Brandon said. "Guy's always been too uptight." "He is not," Sam said, but there was no real conviction in her voice. "He's just protective of what?" "You're not his property, Sam." I watched my wife of 8 years step closer to my hiking buddy of 12, watched her put her hands on his chest, watched him lean down and kiss her like it was the most natural thing in the world. I stood there in the darkness, frozen as my marriage died right in front of me. They broke apart after what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. "We should get back," Sam whispered. "Yeah," Brandon agreed. but his hands were still on her waist. "This is—" "I know." They walked back toward the fire, leaving me alone with the pine trees and the sound of my own heartbeat hammering in my ears. I stayed there for another 20 minutes, long enough for my hands to stop shaking and my breathing to return to normal, long enough to make a decision. When I walked back to the fire, Sam looked up with concern that seemed almost genuine. "There you are. I was worried." "Just needed some air," I said, settling back into my chair. "So whose turn is it?" The game continued. I played along, laughed at the right moments, even took a dare to chug a beer in under 10 seconds. But inside, I was already gone. Inside, I was planning. By the time we all went to our respective tents, I had the beginning of an idea. Not just about Sam and Brandon, but about all of them. Nina, who'd orchestrated the whole thing. Derek and Mark, who'd sat there grinning like idiots while my wife flirted with another man. Even Leah, who'd watched it all with those calculating eyes and said nothing. They thought they knew me. Thought I was just good old reliable Eli. The guy who fixed things and paid for things and never made waves. The guy who'd take this line down because that's what good guys do. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I lay in my sleeping bag next to Sam, listening to her breathe, planning my revenge. She destroyed our marriage in front of our friends like it was entertainment. Fine, I'd return the favor, but I'd do it right. I'd do it so thoroughly that when I was done, she'd wish she'd never heard Brandon Pike's name. The mountain air was cold, but I felt warm for the first time in hours. Warm with purpose. Chapter 2. The Spark. I left the camping trip a day early, claiming food poisoning. Sam barely looked up from her conversation. With Brandon when I announced, I was packing up the truck. "Feel better, honey," she said, giving me a distracted kiss on the cheek. "Drive safe." The concern in her voice was about as genuine as a $3 bill, but I played along. "Will do. You kids have fun." The 3-hour drive home gave me plenty of time to think. By the time I pulled into our driveway in suburban Millbrook, I had the outline of a plan. It wasn't pretty and it sure as hell wasn't nice. But then again, neither was watching. Your wife tongue wrestle your best friend while your other friends cheered them on. First things first, I needed help. Professional help. Jace Kowalski lived in a converted garage behind a house on the wrong side of town. We'd served together in Afghanistan back when we were young, and stupid enough to think we were saving the world. Now he was a private investigator with a drinking problem and a talent for finding dirt on people who thought they were too clean to have any. I found him hunched over his computer, surrounded by empty coffee cups, and the kind of clutter that suggested organization was a foreign concept. "Eli fucking Mercer," he said without looking up. "What brings you to my palatial estate?" "I need a favor." "Of course you do. Nobody visits me for my sparkling personality." He finally turned around, taking in my expression. "Fuck, what happened?" I told him everything. The camping trip, the truth or dare game, the kiss in the woods. Jace listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "So you want me to dig up dirt on your wife? On my wife? On Brandon? On all of them? That's going to cost you." "How much?" He named a figure that made me wince, but I nodded. "Done." "All right, then." He cracked his knuckles. "When do we start?" "Now." Jace was good at his job. I'll give him that. Within 48 hours, he'd assembled a preliminary report that made for fascinating reading. Brandon Pike, it turned out, wasn't quite the successful tech entrepreneur he pretended to be. His startup was hemorrhaging money. His investors were getting nervous, and he'd been hitting up friends for loans that everyone knew he'd never repay. More interesting was what Jace had found about Sam. Credit card receipts for hotels I'd never heard of. Charges at restaurants during times when she'd claimed to be working late. A secret Instagram account with a lot more followers than her legitimate. One and a lot less clothing. "Your wife's got a side hustle," Jace said, sliding a folder across his desk. "OnlyFans, private video calls, the whole 9 yards. I flipped through the printouts, feeling sick. There she was, my wife of 8 years, selling herself to strangers on the internet. And there was Brandon appearing in some of the more recent content. "How long has this been going on?" "Based on the account creation dates, about 6 months. But the content with your buddy is newer. Maybe 6 weeks." 6 weeks. Right around the time Brandon had started hanging around more. Dropping by for beers, joining us for dinners. I'd thought he was going through a rough patch after his last breakup. Turns out he was working on creating his next one. There's more. Jace said Naina's been encouraging this whole thing. Got text messages between her and Sam talking about exploring options and life being too short. Derek's been cheating on Naina for months, by the way. Figured you'd want to know. I closed the folder, my hands surprisingly steady. What about Mark and Leah? Clean mostly, though Leah's got some interesting financial records. Looks like she's been skimming from the charity she works for. Nothing major, but enough to matter if it came out. Perfect. Everyone had secrets. Everyone had vulnerabilities. That was going to make this so much easier. Good work, I said, standing up. Keep digging. I want to know everything. Eli, Jace said as I reached the door. You sure about this? Once you go down this road? I'm sure. What about just divorcing her? Taking half and moving on? I turned back to look at him. She humiliated me in front of our friends, made me look like a fool. A divorce is just paperwork. This is about justice. Jace nodded slowly. All right, then. Justice it is. I drove home to our empty house. Sam was still at the mountains, probably still playing games with Brandon, and sat in my kitchen staring at the folder Jace had given me. 8 years of marriage reduced to receipts and screenshots and evidence of betrayal. My phone buzzed. A text from Sam. Miss you. Having so much fun. Home tomorrow afternoon. Love you. I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Miss you too. Can't wait to hear all about it. The lies came so easily now. But then again, I was learning from the best. That night, I started making lists. Not just of what I knew, but of what I needed to know. Not just of what I wanted to do, but of how I was going to do it without ending up in jail or broke or both. Sam thought she was so clever, playing her little games, keeping her secrets. She had no idea that her husband, boring, reliable, predictable Eli, was about to become the most dangerous person in her life. I fell asleep at the kitchen table, my head pillowed on plans for revenge. Chapter 3. The Confrontation. Sam came home Sunday evening, with a glow that had nothing to do with mountain air and everything to do with guilt. She was overly affectionate, making my favorite dinner, asking about my food poisoning, with the kind of concerned attention she usually reserved for her Instagram followers. You look better, she said, running her fingers through my hair as I sat at the kitchen table. I was so worried about you driving home alone. I'm fine, I said, catching her hand and looking up at her. How was the rest of the trip? Oh, you know, same old stuff. We hiked a little, played some more games. Nana got way too drunk and Derek had to carry her back to the tent. She laughed, but it sounded forced. Brandon asked about you. Actually felt bad that you had to leave early. I'll bet he did. If she caught the edge in my voice, she didn't show it. Instead, she leaned down and kissed the top of my head. I'm going to take a shower. This mountain dirt is driving me crazy. I watched her walk upstairs, noting the way she took her phone with her. Probably had messages to delete, photos to hide, but that was fine. Jace had already captured most of what I needed. And what he hadn't gotten yet, he would. The next few days fell into a routine that felt almost normal. Sam went to work at the graphic design firm where she'd been employed for 3 years. I managed construction projects and pretended everything was fine. We had dinner together, watched Netflix, made small talk about our days. But I was watching her now, really watching. I noticed how she kept her phone face down during dinner, how she stayed up late, claiming to work on freelance projects, but actually, according to Jace's surveillance, video chatting with paying customers, how she found excuses to meet Naina for lunch or coffee. Conversations that, according to the audio Jace had managed to capture, centered around her new relationship and how to manage the situation. By Thursday, I was ready to make my first move. Brandon called, I said over dinner. Wants to grab beers tomorrow night. You mind? Sam's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Oh, no, of course not. You two haven't hung out in a while. Not since the camping trip, right? Well, have fun. She was trying so hard to sound casual that it was almost painful to watch. Almost. Friday evening, I met Brandon at Murphy's Tavern, a dive bar on the outskirts of town where the beer was cheap and the lighting was dim. He was already there when I arrived, nursing a whiskey and looking nervous. Eli, good to see you, man. How are you feeling? Much better, thanks. I slid into the booth across from him and signaled the bartender for a beer. So, how was the rest of the trip? Oh, you know, pretty mellow after you left. Everyone was worried about you. Were they? Something in my tone must have alerted him because his eyes sharpened. Yeah, man. Of course we're friends. Friends? I took a sip of my beer, letting the word hang in the air between us. That's interesting, Brandon, because I've been thinking a lot about friendship lately, about loyalty, about what it means to trust someone. He shifted in his seat. Okay. See, I used to think I knew what friendship looked like. I thought it meant having each other's backs, being honest, not fucking each other over for personal gain. Eli, what are you? I saw you. The words hit him like a physical blow. His face went white, then red, then white again. I saw you kiss my wife in the woods while I was taking a piss 20 FT away. Brandon opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Eli, I can explain. Can you? Because I'd love to hear this explanation. I'd love to know how you explain away the fact that you've been fucking my wife for 6 weeks, how you've been coming to my house, eating my food, drinking my beer, all while planning to steal my marriage. It's not like that. What's it like then? I leaned forward, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Enlighten me, Brandon. Tell me how it's not what it looks like. He was sweating now, despite the air conditioning. Look, Sam and I, there's something between us, okay? We didn't plan it. It just happened. And she's not happy, Eli. She hasn't been happy for a long time. So you thought you'd help her out? I thought maybe you'd be better off knowing the truth. I laughed, and the sound was harsh enough that the bartender looked over. The truth, right? So this was all for my benefit. Eli, please. I never meant for it to happen this way. How did you mean for it to happen? Did you think I'd just step aside, give you my blessing, maybe throw you a bachelor party? I don't know. I wasn't thinking clearly. She's amazing, man, and you two have been having problems for months. Have we? That's news to me. Come on, you had to know something was wrong. The way she talks about you, about your marriage. How does she talk about me, Brandon? He realized his mistake immediately, but it was too late to take it back. I didn't mean... How does my wife talk about me to her lover? The silence stretched out between us. Finally, Brandon looked down at his drink and said, She says you don't understand her. That you're too safe, predictable, that she feels trapped. Each word hit like a punch to the gut, but I kept my expression neutral. Interesting. And you're what? Her escape plan. I love her, Eli. You love her. I finished my beer and set the bottle down carefully. Well, that changes everything, doesn't it? True love conquers all, right? You're being sarcastic. But yes, I do love her and she loves me. Then you won't mind if I tell you that I know about the OnlyFans account. About the hotel receipts? About the fact that your startup is going under and you've been borrowing money from everyone you know. Brandon's face went gray. How do you know about that? I'm a thorough guy, Brandon. When someone betrays me, I like to understand the full scope of the betrayal. I stood up, throwing a $20 on the table. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay away from my wife. You're going to delete her number, block her on social media, and pretend she doesn't exist. Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you really are. Your investors, your clients, your mother, everyone. You can't. I can, and I will. Sam made her choice, and now she gets to live with the consequences. But you're done. I walked out of the bar, leaving Brandon sitting alone with his whiskey and his guilt. It felt good, but it wasn't nearly enough. This was just the opening move. The real game was about to begin. Chapter 4. The Inferno. Sam knew something was wrong the moment I walked through the door. Maybe it was my expression. Or maybe she'd already heard from Brandon. Either way, she was waiting for me in the living room, perched on the edge of the couch like she was ready to run. How was your night out? She asked, her voice carefully neutral. Enlightening? I sat down in my chair, the one she'd been trying to get me to replace for 2 years, because it didn't match her aesthetic. Brandon had some interesting things to say. Oh, about you? About your relationship? About how trapped you feel in our marriage? The color drained from her face, but she rallied quickly. Eli, whatever he told you, he told me the truth. Sam. Finally, after months of lies, someone was honest with me. She stood up, pacing to the window and back. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You've been cheating on me for weeks, maybe longer. Eli, don't. I held up my hand. Don't insult my intelligence by denying it. I saw you kiss him. I have the hotel receipts. I know about your little side business online. That stopped her cold. You've been spying on me. I've been trying to understand why my wife has been lying to me, why she's been selling herself on the internet while pretending to be working late, why she's been meeting her lover at hotels while telling me she's having lunch with Nana. Sam sank back onto the couch, her hands shaking. How long have you known? Does it matter? Yes, it matters if you've known for weeks and haven't said anything. What? You think this is my fault for not confronting you sooner? I think we need to talk about this like adults. I laughed, and the sound was bitter even to my own ears. Adults, right? Adults don't humiliate their spouses in front of their friends. Adults don't cheat and lie and sell naked pictures of themselves to strangers. You don't understand. Then explain it to me. Make me understand how any of this is justified. She was crying now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort her. Just cold, calculating anger. I was lonely, she said finally. You work all the time, and when you're home, you're tired or distracted or distant. We barely talk anymore, barely touch. I felt like I was disappearing. So you decided to fuck Brandon. It wasn't like that. It started as just talking. He listened to me, made me feel interesting again, made me feel alive. And the online stuff, that was Nana's idea. She said I could make good money, that it was empowering, and it was. At first, it made me feel attractive. Desired by strangers, by people who appreciated me and I don't. When was the last time you told me I was beautiful? When was the last time you surprised me with anything? When was the last time we had a real conversation about anything other than bills or schedules or home repairs? Her words hit their mark, and for a moment, I almost felt guilty. Almost. Then I remembered Brandon's hands on her waist, her laugh as she flirted with him in front of everyone. The photos Jace had shown me of her with other men. So this is my fault. It's both our faults. Our marriage has been dying for months, Eli. We both know it. I didn't know it. I thought we were going through a rough patch. I thought we'd work through it. How? We never talk about anything real anymore. We're talking now. Because you caught me. Because you hired someone to spy on me. I stood up, suddenly too restless to sit. What did you expect me to do, Sam? Just ignore the fact that my wife was acting like a stranger? Just pretend everything was fine while you planned your exit strategy? I wasn't planning anything. I was just exploring. Exploring, right? And Brandon, what was he exploring? He loves me. He's using you. His business is failing. He's broke and he's desperate. You're a distraction. Maybe a meal ticket if he can. Convince you to leave me and take half of everything we've built. That's not true, isn't it? Has he asked you to leave me yet? Has he made any promises about your future together? Her silence was answer enough. He has, hasn't he? What did he promise you, Sam? That you'd run away together? That he'd take care of you? Stop it. With what money? His startup is hemorrhaging cash. He's been borrowing from everyone he knows just to keep the lights on. What exactly is he offering you besides great sex and empty promises? I said, stop it. Why? Because you're starting to realize you've been played? That your great love affair is just another lie? She was sobbing now, her carefully applied makeup running down her cheeks. A part of me wanted to comfort her, to hold her and tell her we could work through this. But that part was getting smaller by the minute. What happens now? She asked finally. Now you have a choice. You can end it with Brandon, delete your accounts, and we can try to rebuild our marriage, or you can pack your things and leave. Those are my only options. Those are the only options I'm willing to consider. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. What happened to you? You're not the man I married. The man you married trusted you, believed in you, thought you were worth fighting for. You eliminated him, Sam. This is who's left. She stood up, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow night. After that, I'm filing for divorce. Eli! I'm done talking. I'm done being understanding. I'm done being the good guy while you and your friends treat me like a joke. Our friends watched you flirt with Brandon and said nothing. Nana encouraged you to cheat. Derek and Mark sat there grinning while you humiliated me. They're not my friends anymore. And after I'm done with them, they won't be yours either. Something in my voice must have scared her because she took a step back. What are you going to do? Whatever I have to do. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked upstairs. I heard our bedroom door close. Then the sound of her moving around, opening drawers and closets. I sat back down in my ugly chair and waited. An hour later, she came back downstairs with a suitcase and her laptop bag. I'm going to stay with Nana for a few days to think. Good idea. Give her my regards. She paused at the door. I did love you, Eli. I still do. In my way. Your way isn't good enough anymore. After she left, I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and called Jace. She's gone, I said when he answered. For good? We'll see. How's the research coming? I've got enough dirt to bury all of them. When do you want to start? I looked around our empty house, at the photos of happier times, at the life we'd built together that was now just evidence in a divorce case. Tomorrow, I said. We start tomorrow. Nana's apartment was in one of those trendy complexes, downtown where young professionals paid too much rent to feel sophisticated. I knew Sam was there because Jace had been tracking her phone, and I knew Nana would be at work because I'd called her office pretending to be a client. I didn't break in. I didn't have to. The apartment manager was happy to let me wait in the lobby. When I explained that I was Nana's friend's husband and needed to pick up some of my wife's things. Amazing how a wedding ring and a sad story could open doors. When Nana walked in at 6:30, she found me sitting in the lobby reading a magazine like I belonged there. Eli, what are you doing here? Waiting for you. We need to talk. She glanced toward the elevators like she was thinking about making a run for it. I don't think that's a good idea. Sam said you two are having problems. Sam said a lot of things, most of them lies. Look, whatever's going on between you and Sam involves you directly. I stood up, noting how she took an instinctive step backward. You encouraged her to cheat. You suggested the OnlyFans account. You've been coaching her through this whole thing. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. I have the text messages, Nana, all of them. The ones where you tell her life's too short to be unhappy. The ones where you help her set up hotel meetings. The ones where you call me boring and predictable and tell her she deserves better. Her face went white. How did you get our private messages? I'm very motivated, Nana, and I have resources you don't know about. You can't just spy on people. Watch me. I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot of a conversation between her and Sam from 2 weeks ago. This is where you tell her that Brandon is totally into her and she should go for it. This is where you volunteer to be her alibi for their first hotel meeting. Nana grabbed for the phone, but I pulled it back. Those are private. So was my marriage, but that didn't stop you from helping destroy it. Sam was miserable. You never paid attention to her, never made her feel special. All you cared about was work and your stupid construction projects. So you decided to help her have an affair instead of maybe suggesting marriage counseling. She tried to talk to you. You never listened. When? When did she try to talk to me? Nana opened her mouth, then closed it. I don't remember specifics, but because it never happened. Sam never tried to talk to me about problems in our marriage. She just started fucking my friend and selling herself online. With your encouragement. I was being a good friend. You were being a drama-seeking bitch who wanted to live vicariously through someone else's affair. The words hit her like a slap. You can't talk to me like that. I can talk to you however I want because here's what's going to happen. Nana, you're going to stop helping Sam destroy my marriage. You're going to stop giving her advice about her relationship with Brandon. And you're going to start being honest about your own problems. What problems? I smiled and I could see it made her nervous. Derek's been cheating on you for months. Hotel charges on his credit card. Phone calls to a woman named Jennifer who works at his gym. They've been meeting twice a week for the past 3 months. The blood drained from her face. That's not true. It's completely true. I can show you the evidence if you want. Photos, credit card records, phone logs. Derek's not very careful about covering his tracks. You're lying. Am I? When was the last time Derek worked late on a Tuesday? When was the last time he went to the gym on Thursday? Evenings, but came home without his workout. Clothes being sweaty? She was shaking now, her hands clenched into fists. Why are you doing this? Because you helped ruin my marriage, and now I'm returning the favor. Because you thought it was fun to play with other people's lives, and now you get to see how it feels. You never meant to get caught. None of you did. You all thought I was too stupid or too trusting to figure out what was happening. Right in front of me. Eli, please. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell Sam that helping her cheat was a mistake. You're going to encourage her to work things out with me or end our marriage cleanly without drama. And you're going to stay out of it from now on. And if I don't, then I send Derek the photos of you and that bartender from Murphy's Tavern, The ones from last month when you thought Derek was working late, but he was actually with Jennifer. Her mouth fell open. How could you possibly know about that? I told you, Nana. I'm very motivated and I have good help. I stood up to leave, then turned back. Oh, and Nana, you might want to get tested. Jennifer's been with at least 3 other guys in the past month, and Derek's not using protection. I left her standing in the lobby, staring after me with a mixture of fear and hatred. It felt good. Not as good as I'd hoped, but it was a start. My phone rang as I was walking to my truck. Sam. What did you do to Nana? I had a conversation with her about friendship, about loyalty, about consequences. She's hysterical. She says you threatened her. I educated her. There's a difference. Eli, this has to stop. Whatever you think you're accomplishing, I'm accomplishing exactly what I set out to accomplish. I'm showing all of you what happens when you fuck with someone who's smarter than you thought. This isn't you. This isn't who you are. This is exactly who I am. This is who I've always been. You just never bothered to pay attention. I hung up and drove home, already planning my next move. Nana was just the appetizer. The main course was still to come.